Well, it's a country that exists next to the eastern border of Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah,
Does Israel have a right to exist from your perspective?
definitely, of course. Why not?
Well, you know why people say. I mean,
That's
in the what's called the Arab world, in the Muslim world, there are many people who believe the state of Israel is a Zionist interloper, an inappropriate presence, and that ultimately all traces of Zionism and Judaism and Jewish should
That's
be
true,
kicked
but
out of the Middle East, and
that's
they
true.
shouldn't be in Israel.
But I think this has to do with some kind of misunderstanding. For example, how you interpret the word Zionism in the West here is not like it is being interpreted in the Arab world. The word Zionism, for example, here, when you say it, it means like the right of Israel to exist, right? And I 100% agree with this. But in the Arab world, we were brought up, or we were told all the time in the media, in the school, everywhere, that Zionism means for the Arab world to be eliminated for the sake of Israel to be dominating the region. Of course, this is a complete different image. So that's why this misunderstanding is creating these prejudices between the two people.
Yes, forgive me, it's much worse than a misunderstanding.
Bec-
It's a lie. What you were taught was a lie. And I want you to say to anybody that you know in Egypt, no, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Definitely, definitely. But, you know, it was also made for political reasons.
Yes.
When Nasser was there, he wanted to create an enemy in order to promote for his nationalistic point of view. So the best enemy to speak about is Israel. And he started discriminating not only against Israel, but also against the Jewish Egyptians. Egyptian Jews, actually, I met a wonderful Egyptian woman yesterday at the Jewish Center here who is Egyptian. And she left Egypt during Nasser time. And she was explaining to me how many times they went to the notary public and tried to sign this paper saying that they won't have the right to go back to Egypt and couldn't do it more than once. Can you believe this? I understand how painful it is. Actually, when she said this, I can't stop thinking about imagining or visualizing how horrible it is to be forced just to get out of your country simply because you are Jewish or you carry a certain religion. It's something really, really bad. And I wish she never had this experience, she or others. But, you know, this is what happened. And I think what's happening in the Arab Spring now would definitely, definitely help end this. And that's why I think the Arab Spring is not only good for the Arab world, but also for Israel. Because it's helping us stop looking at the Palestinian-Israeli conflict as if it is the end of the world, or as if it is the thing that will never be solved without having dictators in the region. Because our dictators all the time used to use this to distract the people from their real problems. Whenever, let's say, Mubarak or Morsi or whoever dictator wanted to claim a heroic role that they actually never had, they just bring up the Palestinian-Israeli issue. Whenever they want to feel secure or something in front of their people, or sometimes in front of the US, they just bring the Palestinian-Israeli issue without really thinking about a solution. You know, I don't see the two-state solution something so impossible, by the way. It's so possible, except that we had big obstacles that were making it or were stopping it from happening, you know. Now I see the chances for solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is much more possible. The fact that Israel can be seen simply as just another country in the region like the rest of the countries in the region is more possible now, especially given the fact that what's happening online. Those conversations on social media, Facebook and Twitter, between Israeli youth and Arab youth, they are happening every day. You can go there and you follow them and you will be really surprised how it is easy. A couple of weeks ago, we had this in our newspaper, like a headline, saying that Israeli military and Egyptian military are cooperating for operations in Sinai. And the people were very tolerant with this headline. No one criticized this. On the contrary, we were happy that finally they are cooperating. So I think while the Arab Spring is reshaping the shape of, is reshaping, or let's speak about Egypt, while we are trying to reshape the future of Egypt, we are also reshaping the future of the Middle East. And I'm sure the Middle East that will come next is more accommodating, more inclusive than the Middle East we've always had.
Is there serious anti-Semitism still within the Egyptian people?
There are still, of course, but on certain, let's say in the generations that is above.
It's also generational?
Of course, yeah. Because in the younger generation, we did not go through all the war and hatred, one war after another, and all the conspiracies that were happening before. So we don't somehow feel like we need to inherit this heritage of hate anymore. At the same time, as I told you, we're more future-oriented. We care more about the future, how to coexist together in the future. More pragmatic, if you can say, more than thinking about the issue from an emotional point of view.
Have you ever been to Israel?
No, actually, but I always wanted to. But
why do you think you haven't been?
Because this stamp, if I got a stamp on my passport, I would be always like treated as a spy in my country.
In other words, you would be in some way risking something yourself if you went to Israel. And just think about that with me for a moment. I want to understand it better. You know, Sadat and Begin make peace.
Yes.
It's been called in the Jewish world a cold peace.
Yeah.
And it's cold because when in the euphoria, in the joy of when the peace treaty was first signed, there was a hope there would be an exchange of ambassadors and that tourism would flourish for both countries. Egyptians would come to visit Israel and Israelis would come and visit Egypt. And there's a feeling within the Jewish world that that hasn't happened because Egypt doesn't want it to happen. And what you're saying is, even though it's generational, there is enough institutional obstacles of anti-Semitism or anti-Zionist or anti-Israel feeling that even though you would love to go to Israel, at the moment it's not pragmatically wise for you, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Of course, it's not going to end just like that. It would take some time, especially that those laws that somehow prevent people from going to Israel or so are still there since Nasser time. And even when Sadat made this peace treaty with Israel, actually they remained there. And some of the leftists and socialists who belonged to the Nasser time and Nasserists, let's say, they thought that by stressing those laws and forcing the concept of you know, that Zionism, for example, is about eliminating Arabs or killing Muslims or so, they kept promoting this in order to tease Sadat, you know, not actually. So it's a heritage of beliefs and actions that would be eliminated one after the other. But it's a process.
It will take time,
take
won't
time.
it? Yes.
Of course.
I asked you about your mother before. Would your mother be happy if you went to Israel?
I didn't ask her, but
you know her well enough.
I don't think she would mind, by the way.
This would not upset her. She doesn't want you, she would never say, oh, you can't go to the Jewish Israel.
No, no, in this regard, she's more open-minded in respect with religions more than that.
Okay.
It's,
in your mind, God is Allah?
yes, God is God.
God is God.
The one God.
It's one God, okay. And you call the one God Allah?
Yes, in Islam, yes, it is. Yeah.
Does Allah love Jews?
Of course.
Why are there so many in the Muslim tradition who say he doesn't? That I shouldn't say he, that Allah doesn't.
Because
Why is
they
that?
don't. First of all, they are fanatics. They don't understand. They are fascist somehow. They think they are the best people in the world and everyone else. Actually, they say the same thing about even Shia Muslims too. They say the same thing about Copts. They say the same thing about everyone. So those people actually doesn't count on Islam, and you cannot count them on Islam or say they are Muslims. They are just some distorted version of human beings that should not needs a lot of change in their minds.
Okay, so there are many people watching right now They're watching you. I think they're in love with you on Shalom
Thank
TV.
you. Thank you.
And they're both Jews and Christians and Muslims. We get emails from Muslims as well. I'm very proud of that fact. But I want you to talk right now to those who are Jewish who are watching. There are Jews who are concerned that everything that's happened in Egypt, the instability, what looks like chaos to the American,
Yes.
is in some way threatening the Egyptian-Israeli stability. What would you say to them? To what extent is there reason to be concerned? To what extent do you feel there's no reason to be concerned?
Okay, of course, what's happening in Egypt is very tough, definitely. But it's not to the extent that it would threaten something that is very big, like the Israeli-Egyptian relations. Because, again, now we're looking at the Israeli-Egyptian relations from a very narrow lens. It's not about, or let's say the relation between the Jewish people and the Egyptian people goes very backwards. You have us in your Bible, actually. And we have you in our history from the time of pharaohs. So it's not a new relationship. Somehow we are connected. At the end of let's say, the cluster of the family, we are connected somewhere. If you look at this, you will realize that we have gone through a lot of difficulties together as two peoples, and we ended up living neighbors next to each other. What we're going through right now in the Middle East is one of those episodes, another difficulty.